change. Again, this is all about how we work with the sector itself. So kind of in practice, we would work extensively with your Metas, your Twitters, your TikToks, all around their online safety tools and teams and processes that they follow. One, upskilling them two through different initiatives like Safety by Design, but it's also working with different countries and governments around the world to focus on uplifting online safety when it comes to these platforms and products. A good example of that is I think it was just last week, we launched our online regulators network, that eSafety's spearheading, and that's with countries like the UK and Ireland and the US too, really focusing on how they approach regulation of these companies, how they get online content either removed or prevent it from being posted in the first place. And if we just move on to the next slide, just to give you a bit of a visual of what eSafety is and who we are. As of current count, I think we've definitely broken the 200 staff mark just the other month, which is exciting, and kind of how those three Ps are disseminated across the different teams. One, the education, prevention, inclusion branch there that we've got in blue, which myself and Shannon work in, that really focuses on that first P all around prevention. The investigations team there is all about the protection and implementing our regulatory powers. And then in that international team is really where all that proactive work comes as well. And as you can see there, as you'd expect with eSafety, we've got quite a large technical and digital team. They're really the ones building out all the learning management systems, all the interactive modules that we have across the different sites too. And we also have our comms, legal and research teams there who, especially on the research side, compile and push out a whole wealth of different research materials. It seems like on a monthly basis at this point, but really frequently throughout the year, and we'll speak to that in a bit more detail in the next slide. So if we just pass on to the next slide there. So of all the research pieces that we have, we've just plucked this one here from our Mind the Gap research report that was published, I think, earlier this year. And really, it gives a good summary of the type or the landscape of online harms facing Australians at the moment. So as you see there, some of the stats, almost half of children had a negative online experience in the past year. Compare that to nearly 70% of adults have not had a negative online experience in the past year. You've had nearly a quarter of children have treated someone in a hurtful or nasty way online in the past year too. And then some of the other stats at the bottom there around LGBTIQ plus communities and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples also suffer hate speech at double the national average too. So that gives a bit of a context within the landscape that we're working with here. What's really interesting, and we'll speak to a little bit later in the presentation too, is as part of the work we're doing with the sporting sector, we already know we have a whole bunch of research focused across different groups and Australians as a whole. But we're a bit limited in our research when it comes to online harm occurring in sport. And that's why engaging with groups such as yourselves and different stakeholders across the sporting landscape is really vital to the work that we do. One, because it helps give us just an insight into the type of harm occurring, and also two, the scale of it. And kind of that can directly inform some of the different programs and interventions that we do. So I'll stop there and pass on to Shannon to talk a bit more about our reporting functions that we have.
That old trick. Next slide, please, Mark. So just quickly, thought we'd just highlight a few resources that might be useful to you as sport administrators. You might have seen them before, but just to revisit them. So we do have that reporting function. People can report online harm to us through our regulatory schemes. There's 4 of them. One is around for cyberbullying of children. One is for adult cyber abuse. image-based abuse and reporting illegal and harmful content. So that allows us, we're tasked with being able to investigate complaints, and if they meet certain thresholds, require the online service providers to remove content. So that reporting service is available via our website. Next slide, Mark. A second key resource, if you like, is our website in itself, and I'm sure a few of you have had a look around it. It's very comprehensive. There's a lot of material on there. To point out a few of the key resources, I think, on the website. Next slide, please, Mark. The key issues section, and anything we talk about today, I mean, I think you're going to get the slides after, which will be linked, and I'll send you a bit of a summary email with links to anything we're talking about here. But that key issues section of the website is really handy. So obviously Canvas is a few dozen common topics that people kind of seek information on. So whether that be cyberbullying or how to remove content themselves, how to set up their devices safely, what to do when they get unwanted contact, there's a few examples there. But it's a really good library of common topics and help for people. Next slide, please, Mark. The fact that we do have very tailored resources on the website to different audiences, and there's a couple of screenshots from the eSafety Kids and the eSafety Young People sections. So, and you know, they have really been built and refined based on evidence and research and experiences over many years, and they're fantastic resources in themselves. Next slide, please, Mark. And the other, I think, good resource on the website to highlight, you know, which could be useful to you is the eSafety Guide. So it's essentially a directory of, you know, I'd say over 100 popular social media platforms, apps and games where you can get really specific advice on how to kind of manage security and privacy within those apps. You know, how to do things like moderate content or block people or just set your privacy settings right, as well as what to do if you encounter some sort of harm within those apps and platforms. So it's a very, very handy resource. Next slide, please, Mark. The third thing I wanted to highlight is just the training that's available through the eSafety Commissioner. So that falls into a few categories. We have a training and outreach team. Those four lovely faces there. I'm sure maybe you've had a presentation from particularly Kelly or Greg over the years. So eSafety will come out and run free presentations tailored to your group. They do that for any sector or organisation, but they have done many presentations for sport groups over the years. That can just be booked on the website. We have a trusted eSafety provider program, which is essentially an endorsed list of online safety providers. So that is available on our website too. That program's just had a refresh, so those providers have been re-endorsed for another couple of years. So I think there's about 20 listed at the moment, but that's going to grow probably up to around 40. So that could be handy for you. We're definitely here and available. That training team's available to run training, but there's 4 of them. And they can get a bit busy and stretched. So I think that eSafety provider list is a good option if you're looking for something with a quick turnaround or you want to roll out some widespread training in your organisation to squads or teams or whatever. We've got eSafety Women's Division, which within that division there is a specific program called Women in the Spotlight. The Women in the Spotlight program is supporting women who have a public profile and are, you know, are subject to more online abuse. And under the Women in Spotlight training, the eSafety Women team do go out and run social media self-defence training in 2 forms. They offer that in a sort of tailored format, so they can be booked and come out and run training with your group, or they've just started offering public webinars. Again, they actually do a number of sport presentations. There's a photo there of Anita with one of the National Netball League teams from a presentation just a week or two ago. And fourthly, we do have a pretty rolling schedule of webinars all year round, a lot of webinars for parents and carers, webinars for target groups. We have quite a detailed program of webinars for older adults. So plenty of sort of training opportunities available through eSafety as well. So we're going to move on to just to talk specifically about eSafety in sport now. I guess the context for that is that we have worked with sport before. As I said, many of you may have had a presentation from Kelly or Greg from our training team over the year. But in the last 12 months, we've just had the opportunity, really by way of myself, I work at eSafety 2 days a week, and Dara does lots of different things, but he's able to portion a little bit of his time to specifically look at sport and how we could enhance our support and what we're doing. So I hand over to Dara, who has been around longer than I have and kind of involved in kicking all this off.
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, as Shannon mentioned there, really our eSafety sport program is only really been up and running for about 12 months now. So really in over the years, we've had engagements with the sporting sector, kind of at different levels, but kind of more and more we would see, and it's just on the previous slide there, kind of really what would happen is, an elite sports person or team would be in the news having suffered online abuse or had a negative online experience. And normally, kind of either one of two things would happen. One, the organization or someone connected to the player, whether it be a team, management, anything like that, would get in touch with eSafety, basically to ask, hey, this has happened. What can we do? Or alternatively, if we see it kind of happening, we would proactively get in touch with the organization or the player involved to offer our support, or basically to say to them, there are a few things you can do or a list of options that you can take here. But to be honest, it was quite ad hoc. And a big part of that is, one, there was no dedicated team to the sporting sector within eSafety up until about 12 months ago. And two, as well, a lot of the resources that we've talked about today so far, they're not sports specific. They are quite general in that way too. So really kind of, it was last November now, November 4th, eSafety held a roundtable chaired by the eSafety Commissioner, with 24 CEOs or equivalents of some of the major sporting organizations in Australia. And if we go to the next slide, really one of the key things to come out of that roundtable was all CEOs from the sporting sector present, and the Safety Commissioner signing a online safety statement of commitment to tackle online abuse in sport together. It was a really powerful symbolic thing, I would think. One, because it raised the profile of eSafety amongst the sports sector. I think, one of the key issues that we have, not just in sport, but just in general too, is we have a whole plethora of resources, regulatory functions and tools when it comes to reporting, and all the work that we do with the sector itself or industry itself with the different platforms. But in terms of awareness of what we do and just awareness of eSafety in general, that's always been a challenge. And kind of through working with a sector like the sport, as much just awareness raising of the fact that we exist and we can help is always helpful. One of the key things to come out of this online safety statement of commitment is, one, was really the impetus for eSafety to pull together an eSafety sport program and get it up and running. Out of that, we've identified quite a few different priorities that Shannon will talk about in a bit. But it's really kind of, if we move on to the next slide, it's really kind of boils down to building a robust evidence base that will inform all of our different interventions or support in this space too. So that, again, as I mentioned before, meeting and working with people like yourselves on the call, but also, working with our own research teams to commission, whether it be literature reviews, different pieces of research from a sporting context, and also just working really just across the sector and also internationally to really understand, these are the type of harms that occur in a sports setting, whether it be at the elite level or the community sport level. But also kind of, these are the most effective ways to approach it through different interventions, whether that be your training, your resources, or any other kind of support. And on that kind of research piece, then I'll pass back to Shannon just to go through a bit of the research that we have found in recent months, talking to the type of harms and scale of the problem.
Next slide, please, Mark. Thank you. So in terms of that evidence base, I think overall, as Dara said, there is pretty limited research and insights when it comes to online harm in sport, and that's in Australia or internationally. We did have Paul Oliver do a literature review for us a little while back, which we're sort of working through. But we are talking about a limited amount of research, and most of it has concentrated on the experiences of elite adult athletes, that's for sure. So there's definitely more to learn. I thought, just popped up some examples here that have come from a few reports where they've attempted to sort of indicate the prevalence of online abuse in elite sport. So a few stats there from the BBC. The BBC do a survey of elite British sportswomen every couple of years, and that was reported that 30% of them have been trolled. The English Premier League tracked abuse on Twitter against its players during the 21-22 Premier League season and found that 68% of them experienced online abuse and 7% experienced it daily. And this is fairly high level abuse. We're not talking about, I guess, hurtful or unkind comments or, sort of personal attacks. It's really discriminatory, racial abuse and threats, high kind of level and threshold. World Athletics looked at its athletes post-Tokyo Olympics, found that 14% of them had received online abuse. And in another football study, there have actually been quite a few football studies which sort of compared what happened at Euro 2020 and AFCON 2022 to sort of look at patterns of abuse, like what triggers different types of abuse and what kind of different athletes might receive. They found that 55% of the players at those tournaments received discriminatory abuse too. So, there's definitely a lot more to learn, but I think one thing is that whether it's anecdotally, you would know yourselves, there is obviously a risk there for elite adult athletes. And what the studies that we've reviewed say is that education needs to be better. And it actually, in a number of reports, calls out that education for younger athletes needs to be a lot better. So I think there's a good opportunity for us to do some work there, whether it's with a group like this, to look at what younger pathway athletes are receiving in this space, given the risks that seemingly they may face when they reach that sort of high level competition. Next slide, please, Mark. And just one other little piece from a research report I thought I'd share with you is this report was done by the Players Associations of FIFA and the NBA and the WNBA. And like some of the other studies, they kind of monitored a group of athletes' social media over a period of time. That was 5 months during 2021 to look at the kind of abuse they received. It found also that it was relatively common. I think 2 in 3 of the male footballers in the study received discriminatory abuse during that time. And the report it wasn't really just about prevalence. It really did go in and look at the impact of that and really unpack the significant impact that it has on players' wellbeing. But I think it did make an interesting point. It looked at, so there were over 1,500 highly abusive posts detected in that study, directed to those players. And what it did was equate that to a physical environment. So if you took those 1,500 posts, that would look like 17 in-stadium incidents in every round of the NBA season and 38 in-stadium incidents in every English Premier League fixture week. And the point was made in this report that abusive incidents in stadiums make headlines. So when it comes to online abuse, and, you know, it's high level, it's very threatening, you know, awful stuff that's being directed to these players, you know, is there a tendency to maybe downplay behaviour that would not be tolerated in physical venues, even though these research and reports are kind of now pointing to the significant impact it's having on players' mental health and well-being. So it was an interesting reflection, and I think it's good food for thought going forward in this space. Next slide, please. On the home run, just one or two more slides. So just in terms of our work and what the focus areas for us are going forward when it comes to sport, we will be continuing that Play It Fair online project, falling out of that statement of commitment. Secondly, I think collaborating with league agencies is going to be critical. So we are really trying to shore up our relationships with SIA, Sport Australia, Play by the Rules in the first instance, because alignment here is critical, and there's obviously really good opportunity just to work in with national policy frameworks and national education programs, not create separate things. So that's going to be really important. We have got some new website resources coming, and I'll flick those up in a minute. Building our insights, so working with our research team. We've been meeting with some of the researchers in this space and looking at the next steps we can take to understand what is happening in the sports setting more. We do a number of specific projects with sports. We have an MOU with the AFL, and for instance, and a number of kind of one-off projects. So Dara's been working with Football Australia around the World Cup, the current and women's upcoming World Cup. So we do that specific work with some sports, and of course there will always be that ongoing education and training available via our training teams to the sector. Next slide, please, Mark. So in terms of that website resource, this is what is in the pipeline or what has been drafted. We're just working with our in-house digital and comms team to sort of work on the timeframes, and in terms of what can be delivered when, and then we've planned to do a little bit more consultation. But that web resource, the first iteration of it, is generally got 4 content modules, one for administrators, coaches, officials, and adult participants, as well as some sort of generic material. The administrator content is very much around how to prepare for online safety. So there's steps that need to be taken, how to respond to incidents in a really practical way, and lots of scenarios of what to do, as well as sort of, you know, how to deal with common issues. The content for coaches and officials and participants just presents sort of common issues that people might face, how they can manage their digital reputations, how they need to set up for safety around, you know, privacy and security, and also what to do when issues occur. So yeah, we hope to have that up and running soon. And final slide, please, Mark. So really, yeah, that is it from us. It's just a bit of a whirlwind overview. As I said, we'd love to come back and, you know, hopefully I think there are some opportunities to maybe work together a little bit more in the future. But please individually reach out to us anytime for training. You might have a project that you're working on that we could be helpful with. I know I was speaking to Athletics Australia a couple of weeks ago. They were looking to do some new coach education and integrate some online safety information into that. So we're happy to help out with anything like that. communications, if you want to put together an article or something out on social media, just reach out. Safer Internet Day is coming up next year, and that's always a good opportunity to share a positive message around online safety. But yeah, that's about it. And yeah, it'd be great to sort of work together in the future. Probably completely run out of time, but if we haven't, happy to take any questions.
You've done really well. We've got the chat coming through online, Shannon. So
okay.
Quickly, was there any questions from our in-person audience quickly? No? You've got the contact details there, and Shannon and Dara are fantastic. So please feel free to send through any questions that you may have. Thank you very much, Shannon and Dara, for that presentation. That was really enlightening, and we look forward to working with you two going forward into the future.
Thanks, Mark.
At this point, I'd like to bring up our Child Safe Sport officers from the OCG, our wonderful colleagues, Matt Sibley and Mark Laurenti, to talk about some of the new OCG resources that are coming out. And we just have to be careful. There's this little camera we're using, so might have to tag teams. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
I'll just come in and say hi, Mark. How's it going? He's doing the preso today, so you get to hear his lovely voice. Bye.
Okay, hey everyone. So I'm Matt Sibley. Am I in the shot?
Well, Matt.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, these hybrid meetings are fun, aren't they? So I'm the Child Safe Officer for Sport and Rec, and Mark is as well. And so we just work with everyone in sport. A lot of you we've met throughout the year, and it's been great working with you. So I'm just going to highlight some of the child safeguarding resources that are coming out of the OCG and some of the things that the child safe officers have been up to. So the big one, and this has really been one of the linchpins of the whole year, is the Child Safe Sport e-learning. The beauty of it is that it's scalable. You can have thousands of people do it. It's much easier than Mark and me going out training people individually all the time. So this is something that we now have Module 4 coming out this month in December, and Module 5 will be coming out early next year. That Module 1 is really, really crucial. Really promote that within your sports. Again, we designed that really intentionally. So Maury, who's in the room today, has been doing fantastic work on this. And Module 1 we designed really intentionally to be nice and short so that you could even give it to parents and carers. So it's not just for coaches and committees, but even the parents at clubs. So, and we really want to see that trickle down to the club level. So sharing the link to it and getting people to go do it. The other great thing is if parents understand why their clubs are doing this, they're much more likely to be on board with it and understand what's happening and why it's happening. So I would really push that message of, try and get even the parents. Obviously you can't compel them, but you can encourage them and make it available to them. But yeah, Module 4 coming very soon. So it's on managing people. So it's about recruitment. And so, of course, one of the issues we have in sport is often it's if they have a cleared working with children check, take them on immediately. But we want to raise the standard. We want to have a higher standard for the people who have access to children in sport. So we don't just want a cleared working with children check, but we also want to be looking at, okay, like let's ask some child safe questions of them during an interview process and have something a little more formalized that can ensure that you have a higher standard of people. And I can say from experience from some of the conversations I've had that while clubs may feel frustrated that they have to maybe work a little harder to get the right people volunteering, at the same time getting the wrong person volunteering rips clubs apart and they completely get destroyed when that happens. So it's actually worth it to actually put the effort into that. So managing people will also cover talking to children, talking to families, so engaging them, getting their feedback and that sort of thing, which is a really important part of the 10 Child Safe standards in terms of standards 2 and 3. So so that's coming very soon. If you haven't done Module 1, 2 and 3, I definitely encourage you to do it. Especially Module 3 is crucial because that risk management component is something that clubs are going to need to do for themselves because every club is different. The physical layout, the people, the demographics, all that sort of thing, the activities they do. Are they traveling? Are they staying overnight? All these things affect the risk profile. So we want to make sure that clubs have a good understanding that risk management module will help them with that. Another thing we have coming, and this is something I'm really excited about. So the SAFE series is a program that we've been delivering for many years now to early childhood educators. So actually my first job at the OCG was delivering SAFE series training to early childhood educators. So I have a real soft spot for this program. But basically, what is a protective behaviour? It's about teaching children skills that enable them to help keep themselves safe. Now, we never want to make children responsible for their safety. It's not a case of you're on your own, kid, but rather that we want to teach them things around understanding people who they feel safe to talk to and feeling comfortable to talk to them, engaging with their environment safely, so being what we call a safe explorer, understanding their emotions and how they can perhaps handle their emotions and talk about them with people. So the whole key here is to give children some messages early that give them some ideas of, okay, these are things that I can do that both mean if something were to happen, I'm more equipped to handle it, but also by giving children these strategies, they actually become harder to abuse. They become, I guess you'd say, much less of a soft target for someone. In particular, if people know that children will tell someone if something happens, they're far less likely to abuse them. So when we talk about what we would call determined offenders, they did a study and they found that the vast majority of them, when interviewed in prison, said that if I knew a child was going to tell someone, I wouldn't abuse them. So they would usually look for a softer target. So by giving children this training, it actually encourages them to have the skills to actually make themselves safer. Again, adults still have that responsibility to keep them safe. But so this program, we're adapting it to a sports setting. So we're actually going to, we've got the characters, but we're remodeling them into a sports setting. And so this is expected to be released this month. That's on track, isn't it? Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So let's look forward to that one. So that'll get distributed soon, and it'll be a really cool opportunity to get some messaging. And also when we think about Standard 2, one of the core components of Standard 2 is children having access to abuse prevention education and that sort of thing. So this is one nice cog in that machine for you. Just lastly, I've got the wee chess pieces there because let's think about our strategies and what actions we can take moving forward. And so one of the things I think we need to move on to next year is really thinking about how we can move things out of Olympic Park and into clubs and regions. So these conversations are fantastic. I love talking to you all and I want to continue to talk to you, but we also want to see how we can get things down to the grassroots level a bit more. So I think that's one thing to really look at. In terms of things you can do, complete the Child Safe Sport e-learning if you haven't done it. I would definitely encourage it. Maury's done a fantastic job on that. Rachel's done Rachel. Yeah. Like we've got a team of resource people who've been doing fantastic work on this, and it's really easy to complete. I definitely encourage it. And if you do it, it's then much easier for you to encourage others to do it. If you can say, well, I did it, I found it helpful, and pass on that message. You can distribute links to the e-learning so after you've completed it, distribute links to it to your state staff, your associations, and even right down to the clubs, and just get the message out of, hey, this is worth doing. Take a look. We've got the Office of the Children's Guardian Sport newsletter, which you can subscribe to. We're going to do a bit more work. We've been having conversations about social media and really pushing our messages from the Office of the Children's Guardian perspective next year. And so part of that will be the newsletter. So we're looking to really ramp up how we use that, how we get the message out to people. So sign up for that newsletter. And if you aren't signed up and want to be, just contact Mark or me, and we're more than happy to arrange that for you. And encourage clubs to complete the Child Safe self-assessment tool. So you would have heard about that last meeting. We had someone from our policy team come in, Nick, and he spoke about it. So it's always a bit dicey with anything IT exactly when it comes out, but it should be this month. And so it's a great thing to maybe send out to clubs to have a look at. And as he described, you basically fill in a survey, and then out of that spits a report that tells you these are the things you're doing really well in, these are the things you need to work on, and here's some advice and some tips and some resources to help you do that. So whether it's templates or guides, the e-learning, it'll tell people at the club level exactly where they can go for the help they need. So yeah, so I think there's lots of actions we can take. One thing I'm definitely trying to do is not make my December a month where I get nothing done, and then January becomes a month I get nothing done as well. So I'm really focusing on trying to find those things I can do in the next couple of months that are quite disrupted. So I encourage you to try and do the same. So see if there's those little wins you can get before you go on holiday, and then maybe have a few things set up in the pipeline for January as well. Yeah, but that's it from me. So there's our contact details. So yeah, don't hesitate to contact Mark or me about anything. Yeah, whether it be the newsletter or advice or organising webinars next year. More than happy to help. Sweet. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry.
Yes,
Me.
I should stand in front of this again.
Quick question. With the Safe Series training for kids, how do we present it to, how is that given to kids? Like, does parents sit with them, or how do they watch it or go through it?
Anyone on the
Yeah,
program?
the animation itself is more sort of a broad thing about how children can feel safe and being able to speak up in a sporting context. But if you went further with that and did a whole sort of Safe Series program, then we have a training session for people doing that, so they understand how to present the program responsibly, but also possibly more importantly, the child is supposed to something to do that.
So you're like a trainer almost.
Yeah. We've been running that program for 6 years now.
Yeah, so with the early childhood educators, someone like me will train 20 educators,
Gotcha.
so they know how to deliver it, they know how to handle a disclosure, they know how to make a report. This one's not quite as formal as that, but it delivers those messages, so it empowers the children. It skews young, yeah. So we have been talking about developing one for older. Yeah.
They're getting some education at school already, so they're trying to.
Yeah. And one of the reasons it's for early childhood is because schools tend to handle it themselves after that, but we provide the service for the early childhood. So yeah, it skews young at this stage.
And even for sport, because not many kids do sport.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are looking at developing other.
We just think we trained at every child that they wanted to be taught. And also we want to know if based on the meeting, because we're the spoiler, do we want to develop one for older children and that is something that people would be interested in next year?
Yeah, thank you.
I have done the e-learning module as well to provide a good role model for everyone.
Fantastic.
We have not done it and everyone online. So.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Sweet. Thank you, everyone.
Just apologies to our committee members online. You may not have caught a couple of those questions, but they were generally around the Safe Series, and Simon from the resource team was talking about some of the additional trainer opportunities with that Safe Series, and just watch this space in terms of more to come. Yep. Thank you very much, Matt. That was fantastic, and it's always great to be able to present with the OCG colleagues in regard to our sports sector. They do really well. I'd like to call up to the lectern again, Celia Murphy, to be able to give us a rundown of some of the sector engagement committee achievements through the year. I think we're really proud of what we've done and the work we've accomplished. Thanks, Celia.
Thanks, Mark. And I should have said at the start, I'm representing the Office of Sport Chief Executive today, who would have been here but for a meeting clash, and is also incredibly proud of the work that the team has done. So in collaboration with the OCG, we began the year by creating the Sport and Recreation Sector Engagement Committee. And 2022, there's no doubt it's been a watershed year in the New South Wales child safe space, and our first meeting actually coincided with the Child Safe Scheme being formally launched in early February, and also coming into legislation. Due to COVID, we did meet online rather a lot this year rather than here at the OCG office, and we were introduced in that first meeting to the plans the OCG had to assist the sport and recreation sector in relation to the new Child Safe Scheme. That's a beautiful photo of lots of us online, isn't it? Our second meeting in April allowed us to ask you, our key stakeholders, what you would like to see to raise the awareness of the standards and how to build capacity within the sector. This was the foundation work that then enabled us to create a survey with your help, the help of everyone in the room and online, reached over 1,200 people within the sector. We were thrilled with that reach. It was one of the largest consultations that the Office of Sport has ever achieved. We were also enlightened at that meeting by the great work of Cricket New South Wales in child safeguarding. In June, we presented the initial results of the Child Safe survey, and we heard from New South Wales Rugby League about the top-down, bottom-up approach the Office of Sport and OCG were undertaking with SSOs. We also ran our first online sector-wide Child Safe engagement forum, where we learnt about the National Integrity Framework and how it's being implemented. By the time August came around, we had our Child Safe survey dashboard complete. And we also held the Child Safeguarding and the Law Forum with Marco, who's in the room. You attracted, Marco, 550 registrations, proving that the sport and rec community is keen to know more about their legal responsibilities. Finally, in our last Stakeholder Engagement Committee meeting, we acknowledged and farewelled Janet Scorer, the Children's Guardian, after 5 years of service. Child Safe e-learning modules 1, 2 and 3 were delivered, and we gleaned some wisdom from Swimming New South Wales with their great work engaging young athletes. And in the Office of Sport, we've subsequently had some really good conversations about what we want our Youth Advisory Committee to look like. So thank you to Swimming for sharing that knowledge. It was really, really helpful. So after all of our work with you, the Sector Engagement Committee, I'm proud to say you'll be getting the first look at the Office of Sport Child Safe Action Plan 2022 to 2026, although on the screen we've got 23 to 27, somewhere around there. Thank you to every member of the committee. We have, thanks to every member of the committee. We have a strategic plan which will guide our steps in raising the awareness of the child safe standards and building the capability required within our sector. One of the key actions within the plan is to have a sector engagement committee. So we're looking forward to your ideas for how this committee functions and its focus activities for 2023 in our breakout session today. Can I just mention also, I believe that we were the first sector to submit our draft child safe plan to the Office of the Children's Guardian. So I'm really, really proud, and our Chief Executive is really proud that we have been a leader across the state, across all of the different sectors who work with children, that we were able to submit ours first. And not only first, but I like to believe ours will be the best as well. But obviously there's lots of work to really make sure that the plan comes to life and that we do what we say that we're going to do. So throughout 2022, the Sport Integrity team at the Office of Sport have been working closely and collaboratively with our Office of Children's Guardian colleagues, developing resources, presenting at conferences and doing focused work with state sporting organisations, including netball, rugby, ice skating and little athletics. This is in addition to our partnerships with all of the organisations that you represent. So on behalf of the Office of Sport and the wider sport and recreation community, I do want to thank all staff from the Office of Children's Guardian for their fantastic work this year. They have listened and responded to stakeholders and as such have delivered a raft of resources and support that will assist the whole of the sport and recreation community to focus on our most important aim, that is to be committed to the safety and wellbeing of children. So thank you to OCG.
Thanks, Celia, and thank you for that blatant bragging of the Office of Sport. Take that. Now I'd like to call up Louise Coe, the Director of Child Safe Organisations from the Office of the Children's Guardian, to say a few words. Oh, Louise is online. Let me just check. As you can see, we're still feeling our way through the hybrid meeting.
I think so.
Are you okay?
Yeah, no problem. Not sure where she is. I've been messaging her this morning, but got no response. So, thank you. As you can see, I'm not Louise. I'm Lisa. Louise is my director, but I'll happily help stand in for today. Do you want to? Can I move through the slides, or do you want to move through? Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. So it's been mentioned a couple of times today, but I think one of the biggest things that we wanted to do today was to look back on what we've achieved as a team. And again, Celia's just mentioned thanking us for the work that we've done with the Office of Sport, but I'd really like to thank the Office of Sport for coming to us with such a collaborative attitude, and we've really worked well together. If anything, it set the model for us as we move forward with other sectors as well. So the e-learning, I feel, is one of our biggest achievements, because embedded in that e-learning, there's a number of animations and videos and other resources that can be used as standalone resources too. But I think the perfect thing about this e-learning is it is targeted at the sector. It's meant to be a practical resource for people to watch and learn and take a lot from. So well done to everybody on the team, Mark and Glenn and Mia as well, who all contributed to it. I think the sector will find it extremely useful. One of the things I would say as well is you also asked at the beginning of the year that we have a central place, one place where we go and we get one lot of information. And I think one of the things that we've always kept forefront of our mind is that we do give you one voice, and that it is a collaborative voice from the Office of Sport. Oh, here's Louise now. I started your presentation, but you can come and finish. We're only on the first slide, so there you go.
Are we?
Yeah, so
Sorry.
you can take over from there.
It's a video.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah,
there.
all right, I'm so sorry.
There's-
I've been sitting upstairs. Okay. Where's it? Am I in? You know, so I'm also short-sighted, so and stupid, so doing really well here. Okay, so Lisa's done the introduction. Thanks, Lisa. So our Child Safe Sport e-learning. This has been quite a significant achievement, and it's a fabulous resource, and we really think it hits the balance between being interactive, informative, and having animation. So I'd like to thank the team for the excellent job they've done in developing these modules, but I'd also like to thank those subject matter experts that have been consulted on its development. We never want to develop resources that won't be of benefit, and having your input means that they are fit for purpose, and that means that you're more likely to promote them and use them in your sector. So thank you all for your input and support. We ask a lot of you, we recognise that, but we're very appreciative of the support you provide. So embedded in the e-learning are the animations. So we've got a number of these, and we've developed them to not only adapt to the different learning styles, but to also because they're a great way of sharing content on your social media platforms. Of note, I think the grooming animation about the is a wonderful way to sensitively provide information about the actions we see perpetrators take in order to groom children for abuse. This animation, I think, is one of the most powerful ones we've developed, and I'm proud of the way it tackles the subject without being too confrontational or alarmist. It's not an easy task when explaining such a confronting subject. Also, the understanding risk is a personal favourite. In this animation, what we've hoped to achieve is to demystify the risk management process and the difficulties some people may have with this subject, and to also simplify it into the child safe context. I think this is an excellent resource to prompt the sector to think more differently about risk mitigation strategies. Our videos. So we've developed a series of these, and I'd like to thank all those organisations who participated in these videos. The feedback we've received has been amazing. Again, we couldn't have done it without your support and enthusiasm and energy. But most importantly, it's encouraging to see how the sector has new and innovative ways to keep children safe. It shows the dedication and commitment from all of you, and for all of us to be able to showcase this has been an absolute privilege. I know the sector appreciate hearing from people on the ground who do this type of work every day. There we go. The Next Australia Bachelors. This is M&M. This is Matt and Mark, who you'd all know. You've invited them to their conferences or you attended one of their many webinars. Most of the people in the room will have their numbers on speed dial, and I've heard nothing but praise for the support they provided. I also know they really appreciate the enthusiasm and dedication in sport that people have. We know they are some of our busiest child safe officers, and they also love this work. They love seeing the passion you all have and how you've been implementing parts of the standards. Your positive attitude makes their work so much easier. Please, please keep them busy in 2023 as they want to be able to support the sector as much as they can. And Harris, you're good too. Okay, so moving on. Capability plans and capability assessments. So on that note, Matt and Mark and Harris also provide some bespoke support by completing tailored assessments for individual organisations. These assessments focus on the strengths of an organisation. They focus on what you do well, and where help is needed, we can guide you in that direction. There's no judgment here. This is part of our monitoring program, and it's aimed at educating the sector on the standards in a practical and supportive way. These assessments are all part of our education and training. It's not part of our compliance program. So if you haven't contacted them already, or you know of a club or organisation that would benefit from one of these assessments, please do encourage them to get in touch, as we're always happy to support organisations working towards the standards. Oh, here we go. It's a nice picture. So this is hot off the press. Hey, Lisa. It's finally up on our website. So it's just released. We have this podcast starring Karen Jones, along with Deputy Children's Guardian Richard Weston in the green shirt there, and Justice McClellan in their supporting roles. So I'd encourage you to take the time to listen to this podcast. It's one of our very first. And I'd also ask that if you have any ideas for future podcasts, please get in touch with Matt and Mark. Again, I'll emphasise that we want to know what is important to you. What we do know is that people, especially volunteers, are extremely time poor. Podcasts are a great way from hearing from people discussing real life issues, and so we propose to do a number of podcasts in the future, as we feel everyone has an opportunity to listen to a podcast, whether you're in the car, you're helping out with paperwork, you're walking the dog, or you're pretending to listen to your partner's boring work stories. It's about providing information in a way people find interesting and in an easily digestible format. So, in summary, big thank you from me and the team. It's been a huge year. It's taken a massive effort and commitment from you all, not just by attending these meetings, but by all the work you've done behind the scenes to make this all happen. I think what we've achieved this year really can make a difference in the way we look at the safety of children, and hopefully it has removed some of the fear or apprehension that we know you must have been feeling at the beginning of the year. We knew this first year was with people would be implementing the scheme would be critical in terms of being able to engage with organisations to raise awareness of the standards and to get people to start asking questions. I can honestly say the sporting sector has been really leading the way in this. It's been a benefit to thousands of children and young people who engage with sport every week, so well done to the sector. I think the resources we've developed, the opportunity to hear from people in the same boat as you, will also help to create that desired cultural shift as to how we look at providing services to children, which are centred around their needs and focused on their wellbeing and safety. So this is the latest hot off the, well, not press, I suppose it's graphics cards now. It's not yet released. This is intended as a resource for all of you to share among your clubs and associations to help promote the adoption of the standards. Let's see if this works.
So we really want to be able to be a teacher who is really constructive, but also ensures that they do not get disheartened by anything, because we want them to continue to learn how to grow. So making sure that we're really supportive, having a responsibility and making sure that we show respect for the students so they show respect for us as well, because it's very important to have that kind of communication amongst them.
There's online modules for coaching, so we have to go through that. And then when we come down here as a brand new junior coach, what usually happens is you'll get a more senior junior coach to go around with you and show you the ropes, basically how to really interact with the children, especially on an afternoon where they might have been shut in at school from the rain. So helping those practical skills after you come away with the online knowledge.
I know where to go and I know all the people who can help me if I feel unsafe. Yell for help and go to tell a manager.
I think it's always just to be respectful and encouraging. If they can yell and encourage you on, but always just stay behind those ropes and just encourage you. Like not too much.
It's like a big family.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's great to see all the young people there and in leadership roles and their take on things. So yeah, that's a beautiful little resource. So the focus of 2023, so we have a 3-year plan for the standards, and next year we'll be focusing on the standards relating to children and families, cultural safety and inclusion and diversity of all children. So in about a week's time, hopefully, we'll be releasing the Child Safe Self-Assessment, which is an online tool for organisations to use that will provide them with a bespoke plan to help them understand the areas they may still need to work on. I know this group's been involved in providing feedback and you've seen the tool before. So again, thank you for that. So please encourage your clubs and associations to go and give the tool a go. It's not a compliance tool again, it's about capability building. It'll take about half an hour of people's time and it's very easy to navigate if it works. So anyway, no jinx. Okay, and the other part of that is for the OCG, it will provide us with information about the areas of the standards that people are kind of maybe struggling with and that we might have to increase our resource provision in our webinars along those subjects. So it's a double problem for us. Okay, so. Oh, this one. Oh, it wasn't in my version. How do I get the hold it? Yeah, got it. Yep.
How well are you applying the Child Safe standards to keep the children in your organisation safe? You can find out by using the free Child Safe self-assessment tool from the Office of the Children's Guardian. It will ask you a series of confidential questions. Your answers will indicate how well you're doing, and then you'll be sent a personalised action plan. The Child Safe Self-Assessment, a new way to help keep children safe.
She just said the same things as I did. Is that right? Okay, so that I think I've covered what's there. Okay, so did I say what we've got? No, we've got a few things in tranche for next year. We've got sport-specific protective behaviours animation nearing completion. And while it's focused at younger children, we're also hoping to do a version for older children and engage with some youth groups for that purposes. Again, taking our overall plan for children and families, inclusion, diversity and cultural safety, we have a number of resources in the planning stage that we will again look for your support and cooperation in developing. We also want to continue these sector engagement meetings because we personally have found them to be invaluable. And we hope you've gained some insights from the network of your peers, or at least stolen some of their good ideas from each other. So today, what I'm asking you, is this working for you? Are you happy to continue in this format into 2023? No pressure to respond by a show of hands or anything, but I would ask you to share your thoughts with either office through your reps. So that's it. Contact Mark or Matt, and there's our website where you'll find all our training and resources. Thank you so much for your time. Again, it's a wrap up for the year. I think you'll agree we've got some great starting bones of, you know, resources and enthusiasm and videos and podcasts. So please keep your enthusiasm going for 2023. This is just the beginning of kind of a long journey, but I really, again, can't say thank you enough to the Office of Sport partnering with us to do this work, and thanks to all of you for your